Alright, so welcome to a new video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Amazon ads. So if you're new to KDP or if you haven't run any advertising campaigns to your books yet, you might be feeling a little bit hesitant. You might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the wealth of information that's out there. So in today's video, we're going to get you straight, get you onto a good path and make sure that you don't waste a ton of money when it comes to ads, and more importantly, understanding why you are actually running them. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at why Amazon ads are so important. We're then going to take a look at some truths behind running those ads that you might not have understood or appreciated prior to this video. Then we'll take a look at some of the commonly used terms so that you can understand what they mean. Then we're going to set up our first advertising campaign. Then we're going to take a look at a couple beginner-friendly strategies. And then from there, we will talk about the single most important factor when it comes to running ads that nobody ever seems to talk about. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Chris. I've been publishing for over 10 years. Most of that time has been massively unsuccessful until the last few years where I completely changed the way that I approach publishing. Now I am someone, when it comes to advertising, I have a pretty non-aggressive approach, and we're going to talk about how that works as we go through this video. And I'm also the founder of what I believe to be the best KDP community. If you're interested in checking that out, we have a Discord. We have a ton of content inside the membership. We have courses, strategies. You can get direct feedback from me. We have weekly coaching calls, limited events. There's a ton going on here. If you want to check that out, you want to be a part of this community of like-minded publishers and be able to get more direct feedback from me, check this out from the description below, chrisraydog.com. Feel free to sign up here. So let's get into this and talk about why ads are important for your book. So this is never going to be a case of you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to make this work, but I just want you to understand what Amazon ads are actually doing for your books. So one of the ways that we utilize Amazon ads is to push your books out more aggressively during the launching of your book. So when you release your book onto Amazon, Amazon's going to give you this kind of honeymoon period where it's going to prioritize your book, give you more visibility, and then on top of that, you want to run the advertising campaign so that you can start seeing sales during this honeymoon period and get your books placed onto Amazon for different keywords so that more customers can see your book. So the other reason that we keep running advertising campaigns, so we can use them initially to launch our book, and the other reason is to help maintain our rankings. And then from there, once we're feeling slightly more advanced and we have more money to spend on ads, we can actually go ahead and beat the competition in some cases. So to take a look at what this actually looks like on Amazon. So when a customer comes onto Amazon and they search for something like cute coloring book for kids, what you're going to see here are these sponsored listings at the top here. Now, if you see a sponsored listing after you've typed in a search term, it means that this publisher here is targeting that search term for their advertising campaign. So they're also going to have their organic listing as well. So this is their advertisement. Then they're going to have another listing on Amazon somewhere that is going to be their organic listing as well. So this ad here, for example, once it starts getting clicks and it starts getting sales of this book, it's going to help the organic listing start getting more visibility on Amazon as you get more sales. So the goal here is that we get sales from our advertising campaigns, and that helps push the organic listing to more customers who will then go and click on the organic listing as well. Ideally, we want more people to buy from the organic listing than the sponsored one, obviously, because we pay for the sponsored listing. So that's the only way that I really want people to think about ads, is to kind of just help your organic listings. So of course you can do everything without running ads. You don't have to run ads, but when you do this, you're going to more so rely on your luck, because during this launching of your book, this honeymoon period, you want to get sales to your books, and ideally you want to maintain those sales with advertising campaigns for as long as possible as well. But as a beginner, what people must understand is that there is a big chance that your ad spend is going to be lost on your first few projects, which is why I don't actually recommend that people put a high budget into their first 5 to 10 books. Before we start getting into different strategies, it's incredibly important that we go over some truths when it comes to running ads to your books. Now, if you don't understand this, you run the risk of losing so much money, getting demoralized and quitting. So advertising strategies that you see on YouTube, that you see on my channel, across other people's channels, are very, in my opinion, very overrated and only applicable for people who already have products that were destined to win. These are the type of products that were already going to do well no matter what type of campaign was being run to them. So for these type of strategies, what we're looking to do is to really fine tune everything that's going on inside of our advertising account, which isn't something that anyone just starting off running ads needs to worry about the slightest. So here's another huge thing that I want people to understand, is that your book isn't necessarily good just because it's making some sales from ads. I can promise you almost every single book with enough advertising spend will see sales to it. Now, there's a big difference between seeing some sales in your advertising account and hitting it off well organically on Amazon. So in order to establish if our book is good enough, what we tend to do is go through a kind of test period where we allocate a certain budget to our book. Then we look at the metrics inside of our advertising account and outside of our advertising account. Then we assess if we want to carry on the project or not. And just because you see people on YouTube like myself who have spent a lot of money, or what seems to be a lot of money on advertising, it doesn't mean that you should spend that type of money just because other people are doing it. There's a slow progression to getting to the point where you're spending $30, $40, $50 a day on your advertising. You should not, if you are new to KDP, if you're new to running ads, you should not be spending $20, $30 a day on one book. And like I say, we'll take a look at some strategies that you can use if you are just starting out, but keep that in mind. And also, here's the thing, prolonged ad spend is a huge risk for lower priced books. So in my opinion, there is a different strategy for a coloring book priced at $6.99 and a higher content book priced at $20.99. So our advertising strategies, they have to revolve around a low priced book. So when you spend a lot of advertising money on a low priced book, you just don't have that room to keep spending for a prolonged period, because what you'll find is that you spent so much money, and since the royalties are so low that it's going to take you a lifetime to even break even, and even then that is not a given. So you always have to consider the price of our books as well. So I can completely appreciate that it's not so easy to understand when your books are good enough, when your niche is good enough, when your book cover is good enough to actually start running ads to that book, which is one of the reasons why I've set up the Raydog Seller Room, the membership, the service that we spoke about at the start of this video, where you're going to be able to get my direct feedback on what you're doing to give you that confidence going forward, that when you publish the book and when you run ads, you have a much higher chance of seeing success. And of course, pairing that with all the strategies inside of the courses in the membership, making sure that you don't overspend and you get the best bang for your buck with your advertising. And since we do live chats every single week, you can explain to me your current situation, you can show me your book and show me your advertising spend, then I can give you my feedback on that as well, my direct feedback on those calls. So regarding those calls, if you've missed any, they get recorded and they get added onto the website, the membership, and you can go back and watch these whenever you want. Last week, for example, we took a look at the bold, easy coloring book niche. And what we wanted to do on this call was to help people actually position their books better and stop creating the same book that everyone else is creating, getting stuck with these kind of niche videos, and actually giving realistic angles that people can take for these type of books. So that's the type of thing that goes into these live calls. Again, you can check that out. It's chrisraydog.com. It's going to be in the description if you're interested in that. Before we get into the strategies, it's important that we take a quick look at the different advertising terminology that you're going to find inside of your account. So you're looking at things like clicks, impressions, cost per click, ACoS, and click-through rate. So I'm going to explain all of these as we go into my account. Now, obviously there's more than this, but these are the main ones that you might not understand, but of course need to understand. So let's come into my account and take a look at some of the terms that you can expect to find. So orders is self-explanatory. Cost per click, so this is the amount that you're spending every single time a customer clicks on your ad. The spend, again, is self-explanatory. ACoS, so again, this is something that I don't want people to worry about too much, but obviously we want this number to be on the lower side. So ACoS, as described by Amazon here, is the percentage of your sales that you spend on advertising. This is calculated by dividing your spend by sales attributed to your ads. Attribution varies by campaign type. So typically what we're going to find is that toward the 20 to 30% ACoS is going to be the break-even point for our books. Okay, So as you can see today, my ACoS is 47%, which means across my advertising spend at $9.66, I'm just losing a little bit of money on that. So what we can do here inside of our account, if we want to change the metric to monitor something else, we can go on and click on this button here. Then we can come to any other metric that we want to show on screen here. So for the sake of the demonstration here, let's go ahead and check impressions and explain what that means here as well. So this is the number of times the ads were displayed. So all this means is that if a customer comes over and they see your sponsored listing, so not necessarily clicking it, a click is a click, but impression is just when they see your listing, okay? So when they see your book cover here, that is one impression. So it's super important that we understand what these metrics mean, because eventually what we want to be able to do as we get more advanced with our ads is to actually monitor all these metrics, and then make informed decisions. So another one, for example, is the click-through rate. So let's just go by what Amazon describes this as. The ratio of how often shoppers click on your ad when displayed. This is calculated as the number of clicks divided by impressions, okay? So for example, when it comes to monitoring our metrics, what we can do for the click-through rate is take a look at this number to establish how good our book cover is, okay? So there's a lot of factors in here that are going to determine the click-through rate, such as the type of campaign that you're running. Typically, manual campaigns are much more targeted, so the click-through rate is going to be higher, whereas automatic aren't quite as targeted, so the click-through rate is going to be lower. But I like to see around 0.3% and above on any given day. So when it comes to the advertising data to help us make decisions on our books, the metrics that I like to see primarily are going to be the cost per click and clicks, okay? So we're going to change this to clicks from the cost per click, from the click-through rate, sorry. And then what I like to do is to monitor the clicks versus the cost per clicks, okay? So what you can do if you want to have two metrics paired up against each other, when you go into one of your campaigns, let's just say my color by number book here, for example, what I've got selected here, it's a manual campaign. I'm pairing the cost per click versus the clicks, okay? So there's a specific reason that I do this, is because I like to try and get my cost per click down as low as possible whilst monitoring how many clicks the campaign is getting, okay? So we don't want to get too advanced with the reasoning behind that. We just want to understand that we can monitor these metrics on the campaigns themselves, the individual campaigns, and across the entirety of our account. So like I say, we don't really want to go past beginner strategies to begin with, but ultimately what we want to happen is to see this ACoS number as low as we can, toward 20 to 30% for most of us. So the reason for wanting to have a kind of break-even ACoS when we're doing low price books, so low content and medium content books, is because we want to get as many sales as we can toward a break-even or a slight profit, because the reality is for low price books, it's very hard to make a direct profit across your entire advertising account. So ideally what you want to happen is that you're running the ads, but the organic sales are making you the profit. So if the ads are around break even and then you're getting the organic sales alongside it, then you're making the profit overall from the organic, okay? Because the general feel, and what I would agree with myself, is that it is good to just keep your advertising campaigns going, but it's not good to keep them going if they're losing too much money. So there's a few different types of ads that we can run, but in order to keep this super simple, what I recommend for most people is just creating an automatic campaign. So an automatic campaign, when we create that, Amazon is going to target the keywords for us, okay? The other type of campaigns that I do tend to test a little bit are manual keyword and manual product targeting campaigns, okay? So a keyword campaign would be something that you need to put in manually. So for example, if you had a boho coloring book for women, one of the keywords that you might want to target is boho coloring book. Another one might be boho coloring book for adults, etc., etc. Super relevant, super targeted keywords. I found that those type of campaigns will bring back the best conversions, but the ones that I always use first and recommend are automatic, because you'll typically find those keywords from automatic campaigns. And also I find that the cost per click can get lower with the automatic ones as well. So then you have your product targeting campaigns, which I found sometimes this is a last resort type of scenario, but I do find that you can, for certain niches, get a really, really low cost per click, especially for coloring books. But to really emphasize this here is that if your book is good, an automatic campaign 9 out of 10 times will be absolutely sufficient and fine to work with. So with that in mind, let's go into my account and take a look at setting up your first advertising campaign. So what you're going to do when you're inside your advertising account is come down to create campaign at the bottom here. You're going to click on that, and the type of campaign that we're going to use pretty much every single time are sponsored products. So you can click on continue here. That's going to bring you to this section here where you can check which type of ad that you want to create. So you can put something with a custom text on it, or you can just choose a standard ad. So I pretty much 99% of the time just use the standard ad option. So I'm just going to go ahead. I don't tend to use the ad group name. You probably should do if you want to keep slightly more organized with your ads, but I don't tend to do that. So what you can do is come here, select the product that you want to run ads to. For this one, I'm going to use my addition and subtraction workbook. We're going to scroll down here, and that's going to bring us to those type of campaigns, if you remember from the last slide, that we can run. So we just need to select automatic targeting if we want Amazon to target the keywords and products for us, or if we're going to do this manually, we're going to click on manual targeting. Okay, so what I recommend that people do if they're starting off is to select the automatic targeting and then come to set default bid, and then change your default bid to 75 cents. Okay, so we'll talk about the advertising strategy in just a second, but we don't want to keep our ads running at 75 cents for a prolonged period. Okay, so I don't ever worry about negative keyword targeting, negative product targeting. We don't worry about that. The two types of bidding strategy that I would recommend using are either fixed bids or down only. So if you want to read exactly what these are, you don't have to worry about them too much, but you just want to make sure that you're not selecting the up and down, because that can literally double the amount that you spend per click. Okay, so I pretty much always use dynamic down only, and then we don't touch the adjust bid by placement. We really don't need to worry about any of this. And trust me when I tell you, you don't need to run, you don't need any of these advanced options to be successful with ads. Then you're going to come down to the campaign name, and you're going to give it something logical. So this was a math addition and subtraction math workbook. So I'll do math workbook so that I know what product it is. And then I'm going to say it's an auto campaign, so I know the type of campaign, and then how much I'm spending. My default bid is, which would be 75 cents. Okay, so we don't have to put a portfolio. We don't have to add it to a portfolio. I recommend you do that once you start getting more advanced. And then we can just set a daily budget for around $5. And you're going to click on launch campaign, and that's pretty much it. Now, if you're doing a manual targeting, you would click on this here, and then you'd go ahead, come down to this section here. You can either do the keywords or you can do the product targeting. Okay, so keyword targeting in this case, obviously that would change if you're going to do keywords or products. Keyword targeting, you can use Amazon suggested. You can enter your own list, or you can upload a file. I've never uploaded my own file, and what I suggest that people do, if you are going to go the manual route, is to enter your own keywords in. And I'm going to change this to suggested bid because I don't want to lose a ton of money on Prime Day. So then from there, you would choose which match type. Now, this is something a little bit more advanced that you probably don't need to worry about at the time of recording this. But typically what I like to do is just go for the exact match type here. If you want to find out more about the match types, I recommend heading over to Amazon and checking that out. But if you're beginning with Amazon ads, then I definitely wouldn't go into this manual type of campaign just yet. So to clarify, what I recommend for pretty much anyone, even if you're slightly more advanced, especially beginners, is a standard ad. You select your product, you select automatic targeting, and then you select your default bid. Okay, so the default bid is lower on this one because the book is already it's already been up, it's already been selling. The default bid is slightly lower here. But what you find is that you won't have a default bid, so you can start this at around 75 cents, and then use the down only section here, or fixed bids, and then give yourself a campaign name, $5 budget, and then launch a campaign. Okay, so I want to talk about some advertising strategies that are going to be ideal if you are just starting out. And even if you're not, I still use these two different strategies for any book that I publish. The only time that I veer away from these beginner strategies is when they're not working, and I have the confidence and I feel my book is good enough to test some other finer strategies. Okay, so if you're really new to running ads, what I recommend that you do is create between 3 and 5 books in your niche. So you probably want to make these super simple, whether you're doing journals or whether you're using asset packs or AI, something that has a low investment just so you can get started. Create 3 to 5 of those books, and then add each of those books into an automatic campaign. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. And then what's going to happen is that you'll let Amazon pick the book it can target the best, okay? So obviously in this case, you run the risk of not making the most out of your 3, 4, 5 books that you publish. But the reality is, if you're just starting off, then the chances are that those books aren't going to sell anyway. So this is a really good approach. So what you would do is very, very simple. It's very similar to the campaign that we set up before. So you'd select a standard ad, you come down to your products, but this time you'd go ahead and you'd add the other products in that niche as well. So this is only going to make sense, obviously, if you have books that are in the same niche. So these are 3 of my books that I've ended up not selling well at all, and I've cut them off. Actually, this one sold extremely well, but these 2 here, they didn't sell. But just for an example, what we would do is put them all into the same campaign, and then we let Amazon do its thing. So it goes through the same process, automatic, select the bid that you want to start with, go for a dynamic down only or a fixed bid, put your campaign stuff in, put your budget in, and then launch your campaign from there, okay? So I actually did this for one of the case studies inside the membership, and what we did here, as we can see in my account, we had 6 different notebooks, and this was in 2022, midway through 2022 that I did this. We had 6 notebooks, we put them all into that one campaign. They were all in the same niche. We ran the automatic campaign, and then what we found was that Amazon picked off kind of 2 of those books that started getting the clicks and started getting the sales. Then we just let things go from there. Okay, so it is a viable strategy. It's not one that I use unless I have books that are all kind of in a series. Sometimes I'll do it if they're already selling well. But as a beginner strategy, if you can find a cheaper way to create the content for your book and the book cover, and you just want to test a little bit of advertising spend, I do think it's a great strategy. And I think this is something that people call a lottery campaign, but this is pretty much what you can do with it. The second type of advertising strategy that I use is not just suitable for beginners, it's suitable for anyone. And the reality is this is what I've been doing for the last 2 to 3 years, this type of strategy. And it is so basic that people don't want to do it, because people want to believe that there's some magic strategy that's going to make them a ton of sales. Now, this will work absolutely fine for most of your books if they are destined to do well on Amazon. It's a great strategy for testing your books into the marketplace, which I'll talk about in just a second. But here's what I do. I run around 2 or 3 different automatic ads at around 25 cents, 55 cents, and 75. So we're setting up 3 different campaigns. And the reason that I do that is because I can turn off 2 of them and leave the one on that gets the clicks first. Because, for example, if the 25 cent one was getting the clicks first, it means that that's one of the lowest areas that I can get my cost per click, so I can turn off the other 2. Now, even this is not needed for most people. Most people can run an advertising campaign for around 75 cents and then look to slowly reduce that over time. So with an automatic campaign, what I find is, because Amazon's targeting lots of different keywords, is that you have to wait a certain amount of time for Amazon to get clicks on those different keywords. So if you stop running a campaign just because it's had 10 clicks across 10 different keywords, for example, there's nowhere near enough data to understand if you can keep running that. So I tend to wait pretty much for any type of auto campaign that I start for around 40 clicks before I start panicking and then analyzing the data. So you just need to let things go for a fair few clicks and then analyze from there. Now, if you're doing a manual campaign, which, like I say, I don't recommend to start with, then I want to see around 1 in 8 to 1 in 9 clicks converting, okay? Whereas with the automatic, I like to see in total around 1 in 10, 11, 12 clicks converting, okay? But initially, I will wait for around 40 clicks on the automatic campaigns. So here is the single most important untold factor for Amazon ads that nobody wants to really consider, but you must, I promise you must consider this. It's so important, and that is budgeting your ads. There is going to be, I can 100% promise you, especially if you're starting off, there's going to be a failure percentage for your book. You have to put your ego aside. You have to stop believing that every book that you publish is the greatest thing that's ever been uploaded onto Amazon. It's not, okay? So with that in mind, your books will fail. Your failure percentage will vary depending on your experience. Mine is around 1 in 5 books, 1 in 4 books become successful. So your budgeting has to be based off of that failure percentage. So you cannot keep spending money on one advertising campaign. So what you want to do, and every successful publisher that I know gives themselves a budget to work with within possibly the first month of their book going live, because ultimately what you're doing with your advertising campaign is you're testing your book in the marketplace and you're seeing what the feedback is from the marketplace to your book. Okay, so the best time to do this, to get that, is during the honeymoon period, as they call it, where Amazon's going to prioritize your book, give you a little bit more exposure. During this first month is where I spend the majority of my advertising spend over the course of a month. So for me, my spend is going to be around $150 for every book that I release for the first month, but that is due to the experience and success rate increase over time. Now, you need to make these decisions as you go along. So if it doesn't make sense that if you have a budget of $50, that if after, let's say, $30 of spend and 40 clicks, for example, you've not seen a single sale, then at that point, you don't have to let your advertising budget go any further. You might take a look at that and say, well, it's just not working. I've given it $50. There's not really that much need to give it $200 or $300 and keep losing money. So if you're starting off and you're going to make the assumption that maybe your failure, the amount of books that fail are going to be 19 out of 20 books that you publish, then at this point you have to take advertising spend into consideration. So you might want to reduce your first month's spend or your first week spend, however quick you want to spend it, all the way down to $10, $15, $20, for example. Now, do you run the risk, if you're spending less advertising money, of not being able to reach your absolute potential audience? Yes, of course. But when you are new, it's extremely unlikely that you're going to make a killer book that is going to make you a ton of sales that warrants a higher advertising spend. So hopefully that's making sense. But that budgeting is super important, and that's Amazon ads for beginners. There's a lot more that you can learn, but really you don't need to. And again, that's one of the reasons why I created the Raydog seller room, the service here that you can see on screen, is because I have all of these strategies that go into a lot more detail, more advanced strategies, but mainly we have that weekly coaching. Every single week we're going to be doing that weekly coaching so you can get feedback on where you are at. And of course, within the Discord group, which comes part of this service, you can get my direct feedback on what you're doing. You can take screenshots of your advertising account, show me them, you're going to get my feedback. So we have a couple different versions of the service. You can get involved if you like. We have something that's completely free. There is one live monthly coaching call included with this, and then there's the most popular option, which is the Pro Seller, which is $47 a month, which comes with all the course content and then additional course content every single month. You have weekly coaching, so you can get my feedback on what you're doing every single week. You have private chats with other people inside of the Pro Seller room as well, obviously including myself if you want feedback over text, for example, just to give you that comfort going forward, and all kinds of feedback for your publishing business. And then we have the Master Seller here, where it's basically the yearly membership, which includes a free one-on-one coaching session with me. So if you want to check that out, that's in the description below. So that's Amazon ads for beginners. Feel free to drop me a message in the Discord or on the website, or join the Discord. Whatever you want to do, it's all in the description below. But that's it for this video. I'll see you very soon.